Great, welcome folks. We're gonna turn it over to Renata to welcome us from LSA.
All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Renata Johnson. I am the Senior Director of Children, Youth, and Family Initiatives at Lutheran Services in America. And we're really excited for this four-part series on advancing equity. And we really hope that you all will be able to join us for all four sessions because it will be powerful and impactful information shared that we're really excited for you all to be able to take and infuse with the work that you're doing in your communities and share with other practitioners, and other organizations. Lutheran Services in America is a national network of 300 health and human service organizations who work across 1,400 U.S. communities to really advance health and opportunity for all people. And this particular workshop series comes out of our Results Innovation Lab. And in our Results Innovation Lab, we really work in collaboration to drive equitable outcomes for children and families, particularly those overrepresented in the child welfare system and those who are historically marginalized. Also, we want to make sure that we recognize this workshop being funded by our grant supporter, the ELCA, World Hunger organization, and we're grateful for their support. That is an opportunity where we're really coming together under our Faith, Family, and Community Partnerships initiative to really work with church and community. And what does that look like? Church in the community. How do we show up together? How do we really align what we're working towards and move together hand in hand to walk alongside the families that we're looking to engage? And so this is a wonderful collaboration with the ELCA and our Results Innovation Lab. And we have a lot of other things that are coming out of this project to really highlight the issues of neglect, systemic barriers, and those things that are truly affecting all communities, but particularly heightened in communities of color. Black and Indigenous families. And we know that in those communities, a lot of times those families come into care because of neglect, not abuse. And so we want to make sure that we're looking at those particular reasons why and what does that look like and how as a community we can affect change in that particular area. And so we want to make sure that we're looking at equitable outcomes in that area, and that is what the session today will help us to do, to be able to get equitable outcomes in our mental models and how we approach the work. So I'm really excited for this session, and I will turn it over to Shannon and Dr. Nish, who will lead us in today's activities.
Thank you, Renata. Before we kick off, Nish, shall we introduce ourselves?
Let's do it. So, hey, welcome to the space. My name is Dr. Denicia Carlay. I also go by Dr. Nish. And I come to you from occupied Ohlone, Muwekma, and Chochenyo lands, also known as Fairfield, California. I am a licensed clinical social worker by trade and somatic healing practitioner. I also come to you through the lens and voice of having lived in and survived systems of oppression, inclusive but not limited to the foster care system, and navigating having family members that are incarcerated, and just really being able to come from this empowerment stance of recognizing the jewels that we have within our communities. So I cannot wait to co-facilitate today and help be a guide along this racial equity series.
Yeah, my name is Shannon Scott. I am normally based in Tampa, Florida on Seminole land. I'm currently in Indianapolis, Indiana, on the land of the Miami, Potawatomi, and Shawnee people. And I come to the space as somebody who really cares about people who care about people. So really looking forward to spending some time today, creating a community and a village together where we can take some time to pour into ourselves and each other and really looking forward to this space today. Yeah, so Nish, do you want to give voice to this quote by Dr. Shawn Ginwright?
I sure can. Just a couple housekeeping things. As you noticed, as you step into the space, this is being recorded. However, only the parts that Shannon and I say will be recorded. Anytime that we ask you to speak from your own experience through the activities, we will pause the recording on those parts so you are able to still maintain autonomy and sovereignty over what you say and where it goes. Within that light, we are asking for everyone to step into a brave space in this container and really honor and recognize our experiences and whatever comes up for us and keep it as confidential. Really take out the learnings that are happening in this space and not necessarily attributing it to any particular person so they can feel like they can be their full and authentic selves. We are going to have 2 breaks along the way that are roughly 5 to 10 minutes, depending upon how the flow is rolling. But at any point, feel free to go off camera, feel free to take care of the things that you need to take care of. There will be a couple breakouts, and we're hoping that people will be camera on in the breakout space if you have capacity to. We understand folks are traveling, got kids rocking, all kinds of things. So do what feels safe and aligned with you. Ashe. So as we kick off, we're bringing Dr. Shawn Ginwright, who is an incredible mentor of mine. He's someone who has been occupying this field of social justice for over 30 years. And the healing-centered engagement practices and pivots that we are going to be teaching you today are directly from like what ancestors and guides and angels have brought through him and his work with youth in urban communities. So he tells us, right, that healing is the only pathway to real justice. So this is a man, a Black man who's been surviving in this world for some odd years and has been doing 30 years of social justice work. And he's telling us healing is the only pathway to real justice, because it requires that we take an honest look at what harmed us and pushes us to restore our humanity and finally move us confidently into a possible future. So we're gonna unpack that throughout the course of this time together. But what I do want to amplify about what healing-centered engagement means to me is how important it is for us to first take the medicine of healing ourselves so that we can be moving through this world in a more, in a light of possibility and wonder and acceptance, rather than how we've been moving.
You got the diarrhea.
Yes, we've been moving through the diarrhea. Indeed. So with that, I'm going to start us off with some cultural somatic toys. So bringing in another incredible healing practitioner. Resma Menekam is a licensed marriage and family therapist who's also been occupying the space for decades. And his work is through somatic abolitionism. And that's really about understanding, not just in a theoretical or mind-based way, how systems of oppression have caused spaces that have harmed us, that have caused marginalization of people, that have caused oppression that needs to neglect. But his understanding is that we actually need to get into the cells of our bodies to reawaken our ancestral knowledge and ways of being. And in order to do that, we need to heal from a body-based perspective, our soma. So the elements within ourselves and the elements right around ourselves. So Resma, he tells us about resilience. And so resilience is built into the cells of our bodies. Like trauma, resilience can ripple outward, changing the lives of peoples, families, neighborhoods, and communities in positive ways. And also like trauma, resilience can be passed down from generation to generation. We'll talk more about that. If you want to learn more about somatic abolitionism, you can use your camera to capture this QR code and it'll take you to Resma's website. I'm going to walk us through just like a quick practice that engages what Resma calls cultural somatic toys. So all of today will be about this is how we've been, and this is why we are how we've been. This is where we're going, and here are some practices. So Resma calls them cultural somatic toys, right? To be able to regulate our nervous system and get into our bodies. Shawn calls them pivots. So these are actual practices and pivots and shifts that you can make and how you're seeing and engaging with the world. So these are the things that we're going to be working and navigating through in order for you to uplift what needs to come through you today. Thank you, Shannon. So Shannon is dropping the QR link in the chat. Apologies that it's not working on the screen. So those 4 different elements of cultural somatic toys. So basically, anytime, like some of you guys got on this call and you're coming from other spaces, right? You might even be looking at your email and stuff right now. Your body's naturally going to be in this state of like fight, flight, or freeze, like you're hypervigilant right now. And so Resma's like, hold up, before we do anything, we need to have self and communal. And that just means that we're all doing it together. Time to ground, self and communal time to orient to like, where are we and what is around us? Self and communal time to engage in some movement, to really move that energy through. And self and communal time of touch, because that's like inviting, there's power in our hands, y'all. The energy from our heart flows directly into our hands. And so activating that energy and literally being able to put that on a place of your body that needs that extra love. So I'm going to walk us through a 1-minute practice that engages us in all of these elements. And then we're going to continue to move forward. If at any point you have questions, please drop them in the chat. As I'm able, I'll address them, or Shannon or Renata, will address them in the chat, or we'll amplify them into the space. Okay. So with that being said, as you're able, please get into a place that is comfortable for you. Seated, laying down, whatever works. Just a place where you can literally feel held by what is underneath you. Once you're situated in that place, the invitation is for you to either close your eyes or keep them open, but at least lower your gaze. That way you're not staring directly at the screen, you're not being distracted by what's around you, but your lowered gaze gives you the opportunity to still be present if that's what you need to do, but also go inward. So for grounding is about connecting ourselves with the land that we're on, connecting ourselves with our body and with the fullness of our light. And connection first starts with breath. So I just want to invite you to notice where your breathing is at right now. For me, it's a little shallow. It's a little in my chest. I can feel my heart. I can feel the excitement of the energy in this room. So I'm going to invite us to take 3 collective breaths where we can get our breath to go into our belly breaths. So an inhale and an exhale. I noticed I needed to exhale through my mouth. You can exhale through your nose, whatever is true for you. Another inhale, filling that belly. An exhale, grounding yourself, starting to feel the seat underneath you. Last inhale and exhale, fully feeling the weight. I can feel myself more connected to the seat underneath me. I'm in cross-leg position, so I can also feel the edges of my feet touching the ground. I'm feeling that nervous excitement energy that was in my chest start to drop down with each breath, and just feeling connected to the land underneath me, laying down roots. Next, with orientation, Orienting means looking around to where you're at. That means literally turning your body to look behind you, engaging that psoas. What's behind me? I have this beautiful mirror. I have my altar behind me, looking to the side of you, looking above you, looking in front, looking below. Orienting lets our bodies know where we're at. It starts to get us moving into a sense of safety. I can see where the windows are. I can see where the doors are. I can feel my body feel more grounded and safe in this space. And by nature, I'm starting to move. I'm starting to sway. I'm starting to rock. For you, movement might look like stretching. It might look like yawning. It might look like shaking. It brings us back to our animal instincts, right? Like shake it out, move it through. If we were together, I'd be walking out through a whole movement exercise right now, yoga exercise right now. And the last is touch. So as we close out this part, just offer some touch on a place on your body, your soma, that was like, hey, I need some extra love. For me, that's my chest. And I'm also going to offer some touch to my right hip. Just 10 seconds here to continue to orient, to ground, to move, and to touch. So much gratitude. Continue to use these toys as you need throughout the course of our time together. Because there's going to be moments right now where it feels like, oh, I feel good. I feel aligned. I feel connected. I feel ready for this. And then there's going to be other times where we say some things that can feel like an ouch, like, ooh, what's coming up in me right now from sharing that? That's when you come back to these toys. So we're going to continue forward in this journey. And we always open our space with a land and labor acknowledgement. As you noticed, Shannon and I gave honor to the indigenous tribal lands that we're living on. As Mary Lyons of the Ojibwe tribe says, when we talk about land and is part of who we are, it's a mixture of our blood, our past, our current, and our future. We carry our ancestors in us, and they're all around us, as you all do. So when we talk about a land and labor acknowledgement, again, this is not just from a theoretical brain-based space. Like go to native.com and see what land you're on and all of that. And then you're like, oh, check mark. I know what land I'm on. It's from a somatic place. It's from a grounding place. It's from a reconnecting to this land that we're on, that we've done such disservice to over the last 400 years. So take a moment to connect with the land, to give honor to the indigenous people who tended to the land, who curated the land, who were connected to the land, and that connection that got disrupted through colonization, through genocide. Other people that were brought to this land, many of us are in North America on Turtle Island. Other groups that got brought to this land to labor on this land against their will, their blood, their love, their past, their stories are also encapsulated in this land. We represent those stories. So see yourself and your connection to this land as well. And the last thing I'm going to ask you to do with this is also remember that there are still indigenous curators of this land. An indigenous sister of mine talks about the invisibility of indigeneity. And part of our work to do is to honor that they are still here, that they are not forgotten. So take a few seconds just to connect with what that means to you. And thank you, Kimberly, for letting us know. We transferred over some of these slides, and so I think the QR codes aren't fully working. We will drop working links at the end of the workshop. I know Shannon should be on it. She might be able to also drop a link now, but the link will take you to the story that is encapsulated in this image and gives you one tribal's version of how Turtle Island came to be about. Thank you. So as we move through the last part of this opening container, honoring Mary Lyons and her wisdom about how our ancestors are within us and all around us, we honor them in this space through libations. And libations is just a pouring out. It's a remembering. It's understanding that we are not doing this work alone, that we are carrying the stories, literally the DNA lineages through all of us. And we just want to honor them in this space. So that connection always gets made back to the land. And I'm choosing the element of water. I know some of my friends and family, they tend to use different types of libations. You're welcome to use whatever is true for you. But if there are a couple folks that want to uplift their ancestors at this time by dropping their name in the chat, I'm happy to say the name out loud and honor them through libations. We'll take about 30 seconds to do this. I'll start. Yesterday, I got to spend some time in my great-grandmother's home. She passed 20 years ago, but our family still maintains that house. And I felt so much Fannie Mae Hertz energy. Ashe. And Ashe just means, and so it is. I see the Ho-Chunk people. Ashe. Sherman Diggs. Ashe. Estelle Rollins. Ashe. Minnie Mae Smith. Ashe. Lucille Gaines. Ashe. Basilio Guatemala of the Yaqui people. Ashe. Jerome Johnson. Ashe. The Taylors. Ashe. The Moores. Ashe. The Laughlins. Ashe. The Ellisons. Ashe. The Applins. Ashe. And all of Kimberly LeBanc's ancestors. Ashe. Oh, that's a good pour. They're praising and dancing right now, Kimberly. Emerald Lily of the Turtle Mountain. Ashe. The Inteles. Ashe. Hoodoo in the house. Ashe. And I'll end with Henry Cheney. Ashe. Tommy Lee Smith. Ashe. And all of the ancestors, named and unnamed, that both are connected to people and to the land, the trees as our ancestors, the birds as our ancestors, nature as our ancestors. Ashe, 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 O, Aho. Thank you all so much. Just gonna close out with a collective breath. Exhale. A little movement as we transition into the space. What an opening. We are here. We are arrived.
We have arrived together, yes. We're so grateful to be in this space with you all today and have our time together. And also grateful that this is not our only time together. So this series will explore, as Denicia shared, the 4 pivots from Dr. Shawn Ginwright. And so today we'll introduce those pivots and particularly also focus on presence. Then we'll have our next workshop, which will be in July in partnership with NICWA, and talking more about history and raising our awareness and sort of moving into a place from lens to mirror, which we'll talk a bit more about. Then we have another workshop in September in partnership with an organization called Frameworks, and really focus in on connection. And then our final workshop will be to talk about kind of housing stabilization. LSA is also working in partnership with us to do some research and some listening and some learning from communities about sort of the future of what housing stabilization looks like, for as it is so critical for families and communities. So, and that's when we'll be focusing on the pivot in our vision and dreaming a new future for all of us. So we really hope that you'll be able to join us for all 4 workshops. And definitely, as you know, today we'll be recording, so we'll be recording each of them and be able to share out the learnings from each. Great. So let's dive in to the 4 pivots in understanding healing-centered engagement. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Denicia.
Thanks, Shannon. And thank y'all for really being active in the chat. We appreciate it. I'm just going to amplify Jason's question around the 4th workshop. It has not been moved. It is in December. Initially, we were shooting for November. So when we prepped these slides, that's what it said. But whatever it says on the LSA website for the racial equity series is true for what it is. Yes, no problem. All right, so diving into healing-centered engagement. So within healing-centered engagement, it first starts with that acknowledgement of the cultural harm that has happened to us. James Galbrino calls these social toxins, right? He uplifts the notion of if you were to walk into a house that had asbestos in the walls, it would be like, okay, that's a physical toxin. Every time I step into this house, I'm breathing that into my lungs. It's infiltrating my body. It causes havoc, you know, all the different things that come from that. What is more insidious, but just as deadly, are social toxins, the ways in which we are living and swimming in systems of oppression that are also coming into our DNA, that are also coming into our biology, that are also coming into our daily lives and wreaking havoc on how we are able to navigate things. In the 1990s, there was this research that was done that is still current to today. It's been updated since then around ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences. Shannon is dropping the link to the ACEs QR code. It's a set of 10 questions. We're going to invite you to, in a minute, not right now, to take the survey so you can have a better understanding. But basically, it shows that there were 10 elements that were found, that the more elements you had on this spectrum, and that has to do with like childhood neglect, abuse, parental separation, whether that's due to like a death of a parent or removal, like child welfare removal or parental incarceration. If there's violence in the home or in the community, these type of things, the more ACEs you had, the more likely you were to experience social, emotional, cognitive, in the 90s, what they called impairments, that then led to risky and healthy behaviors that eventually led to diseases and an early death. Over the last 10, 15 years, so many folks, Dr. Nadine Burke Harris, The RISE, RYSE Center and other places have done a lot of work to show that that's actually not where it starts. It doesn't just start in your childhood. There are pervasive social toxins that are passed down generation to generation that are connected to historical traumas around genocide, around colonization, and around the stripping of our cultural identity. These things are really underlying what happens in local and social constructs that create the conditions for people to live in environments where they're not able to fully be present for their children, where they're not able to fully be present for themselves, and where they're not able to fully be present in community. This then leads to complex trauma. Complex trauma means trauma that happens at key critical developmental milestones in your childhood. So if you were 4 and you were removed from your family, then that's going to lead to a complex trauma that will continue to elevate and build upon throughout the course of your life if you're not able to identify it, take it out from the root. That's radical healing, take it out from the root. This also leads to having a more disrupted neurological development, right? You're then developing your neurology around safety, right? And hypervigilance and all these things. Who can I trust when things have happened and harmed your body, your mind, and your psyche? That leads to a certain level of coping. And then all the types of stigmatization might come, right? Like, oh, you have ADHD, or you have this, or you ended up in juvenile hall because of that. All of the ways in which society then continues to add on to those elements. And so what we want to invite is 1 minute of some self-reflection just for you to identify where your ACEs are at. So this is a 10-point question. It's fully optional for you to decide not to do that at this time. And I want to encourage you, as you're doing it, to take those breaths, to use your resources, because this can be illuminating for some, and it can feel like a deep wave for others. So we're going to offer a couple of seconds for you to take the ACEs test. And I'm also happy to answer any questions that might come up right now. I'm going to naturally just engage in some cultural somatic toys in case anybody needs a mirror reflection right now. Some deep breaths. Some rocking. Ooh, feeling like giving myself a hug. My inner little child is little bunny. Little bunny needs a little hug right now. She's like, ooh, we're going deep. I don't like this part. Love it. We are all together. We are all connected. Feeling the love and these interwaves. Okay. Some shake, and we're going to keep going because we're going to offer you more time to go deeper into this. So the question uplifted, and then I'm going to pass it on to Shannon. Is this rethinking of ACEs globally influenced or a reflection of U.S. communities grappling with the U.S. experience? That's a great question. I can only speak from my local context, of which the ways in which Black and Brown identified communities have taken up the charge to grapple with the U.S. experience, to say, no, this is something deeper than that. What I will say globally is that there are folks that are that have done a lot of work where identifying that there are moments where there's an outward oppressor, right? There's someone who's actually colonizing their country as we speak, the wars that are happening as we speak, those things, and that there's other parts of the world that are experiencing an internal oppressor because of the work of the external oppressor. So there are beautiful openings around this, even if it's not called ACEs, in other parts of the world that are identifying these same elements. How has our internalized oppression shown up in what is happening with our bodies and our minds today?
Yeah, and the concept of a cultural iceberg might also be something that maybe you've heard before, but really it's a sort of a metaphor to illustrate the complexity of culture, and sort of our life experiences definitely have an impact on us. The histories and context of our communities have an impact on us, and also the culture in which we are raised with and around has an impact on kind of how we show up in a space, how we interact, our values. There's sort of the surface level culture around kind of language, some traditions, kind of music or food or things like that. And then there's deeper, less visible elements of it. And this can be reflective in communication styles and rules. And I grew up in Singapore, which is in Southeast Asia, and there's very different communication styles. And also in terms of attitude towards particular other like ages or work or authority or power. And then definitely concepts, specific concepts around justice, around age, around gender, class, and around families, and also concepts of time. These all are a part of deep culture. We bring this to our work, to our leadership, and how we show up each day, and understanding that there are differences, and that understanding kind of how we're showing up and how others, and being able to honor that is an important piece in the work that we do. So, and particularly for today, we're going to talk a bit more about what that can look like. With this, we're going to also talk about a specific, before we do our reflection, after we do our reflection, we're going to talk about a bit more about culture and how it can show up in our work and on our leadership. So, but before, let's take a moment to just sort of reflect on thinking about how you see American society's influence on kind of your ACEs score, as well as your cultural perspective. So just kind of a stop and jot your reflection.
Thanks, Shannon. We're going to take 2 to 3 minutes just to journal. You're the only person that's going to see this. What I often recommend to people is a free write. That's where you just start writing whatever comes to mind, whatever comes to your hand. Some of that is going to come through you, and some of that's going to come through other parts of you, ancestral parts of you. Let's take 3 minutes just to free write on your paper that you have now. So Shannon, would you mind playing a song for us while we free write? Thank you.
Working on myself, working on my health, working on my mind, taking all the time, yeah, that I need just to find me. So who's gonna do it with me? Working on my habits, cutting off distractions, getting closer to God, yeah, defeating the odds lately. I'm seeing me through a different lens. I'm taking time to work within, working on the enemy, the enemy. Been praying for my enemies, my enemies. Working on my enemies, my enemies. Improving my perspective. Oh, working on the enemy, the enemy. Ain't got no time for enemies, no enemies. Working on my enemies, my enemies. Improving my direction. Oh, I'm not losing focus. And all that you know this. I'm taking the time to moisturize my skin and get my 8 ounces early in the morning. Don't worry about me, I'm minding my business. I'm working on me, getting Jesus in therapy, some things you might never see. Won't post it on IG, but just know I'm working on the enemy, the enemy. I'm praying for my enemies, my enemies. Working on my enemies, my enemies. Improving my perspective. Oh, I'm working on the enemy, the enemy. Got no time for enemies, no enemies. Working on my enemies, my energy. Not those in my direction. Oh, I'm not living in my past mistakes. My thoughts are no longer prison mates. My life is free from
Hit the shut back on.
negativity. And I make space for that was meant for me. I'm detoxing.
Okay. We're gonna give you space to be able to share if you want what came up, but we're gonna give you a few more nuggets of information before we do that.
So some folks might be familiar with the book cast or the movie cast that has recently come out, and highly recommend if you have not seen the movie or read the book. But Isabella Wilkerson really ends with sort of this metaphor that we're all kind of in this home together, and that, like other old houses, America has some skeletons, and like caste system, where which she posits is about kind of the like power dynamics of oppression, and is essential to the house that we all find ourselves in. It's in the studs, it's in the joints. We can't see it, but it's there. And the sort of idea that like we didn't put the cracks in the foundation. We didn't put it there. But we're in this house together, and acknowledging that there's some trouble in the studs, there's some trouble in the foundation is important. And then being able to figure out how we can sort of acknowledge and speak the truth about that, and find ways to heal and reconcile together to move forward, which I find to just be a really honest and also unifying way to talk about our history. So with that, building on some of the culture that we talked about, some of the things around like concepts of time, and views of kind of power and education and age, come speak to a culture of white supremacy. There is a culture of whiteness in our country that has sort of valued specific things. It's not exclusive to white culture, but it is dominant in our country. So really being able to engage in conversations like we're having today, and taking specific action to decenter some of that white supremacy culture, we can really create more spaces where folks thrive. So, Nish, do you want to speak a bit about the sort of 13 characteristics of white supremacy culture? Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. As Shannon shared, this is what's prevalent in the United States, right? Is that once colonization happened in the 1400s, there became this notion of a particular group being created. Whiteness was created, right? Because we all come from different cultural lineages. Whiteness is broken down into like Irish and European and all the different places that we've come from to land here on Turtle Island, on this indigenous native land. Within that whiteness, different characteristics started to emerge. Kenneth Jones and Tama Oken developed this in 2001, where it's like, these are the 13 characteristics that we have come to see that have been more rooted in this whiteness, this social construct of what should be elevated as supreme. But the reality is that in order for us to heal as a country, as a people, as an individual, we have to start to really look at these elements, interrogate them, and disrupt and dismantle them. So this notion of perfectionism, none of us are perfect. As Shannon and I are sitting here as facilitators, as experts, right? There's times where I'm talking and I'm not muted. There are times where we talk over each other. Like, there's not a notion of perfectionism. And that was something that was used to keep certain groups of people down and to keep them competing with one another, for this certain platform. A sense of urgency. So this notion of time. Time is a social construct. There's not really a such thing as 10 a.m., right? So this urgency to like perform and be present and be there on time all the time, right? That creates a certain level of frenzy within our bodies. In the interest of time, I won't go through all 13 of these. For all of the things that we're sharing, I know we're giving you a lot of different nuggets. This is your way to take agency and decide, like, ACEs really stuck out to me. That hit home. I want to do a deeper dive and research Dr. Nadine Burke Harris's work, the Rise Center. Like, I want to go deeper into that. Disrupting characteristics of white supremacy. That's a nugget that I want to take back. I want to look more into these. So there are tons of articles and information out there for you to better verse yourself on these elements. But what I did want to uplift before we take a break was that as we've communicated, these are elements that exist within the culture of the United States. And it's not just something that impacts white people. Is something that impacts all of us, right? Every single body is impacted by how these elements have become a cultural norm. And now is the time for us to decide, what kind of culture are we recreating? Are we going to continue to uplift a culture of an either or thinking? Of a culture of like, my way is the right way and your way is not? Like, I know the answers, so you need to just come on board with me. So the different things that we are going to provide you today are going to be ways for you to make pivots in that and to really take a reflection, right? How are the ways that you've internalized these things? I have a whole ass doctorate, y'all. Like, I did not get here by not internalizing some of these things. I had to go through a particular pathway that made me honor a perfectionism and individualism and power hoarding. And throughout that time, that chipped away at who I truly was. I remember the first year of my doctorate program, there was a Black woman who was on the panel that talked to us. And the question we asked her was, what is something you didn't expect after completing your program? And I thought she was going to say something big, right? Like, oh, I didn't expect all the book deals that were going to come my way, whatever the thing was. But what she said was that she didn't expect the amount of healing that she was going to have to do after crossing that finish line. She had to take a whole year sabbatical to heal from the ways that she had internalized these elements in order to get through that process. And that's something that I really sat with during. Now's the time. Now's the time. And it starts with each of us, and it starts with this collective.
Yeah, I think even yesterday I was at a conference in Indiana, and I was facilitating a session yesterday, and so much of the conversation was, well, I don't have time to, I know I need to do these things, but I don't have time to do these things because I have these 18 other things that I need to do. And it was like, the amount that each of us carry every day, and also in an organizational culture that really values urgency and perfectionism, that can really be grinding to us as individuals. And in our, like, when I think about whiteness and white culture, like as a white bodied person, as a white woman, it's harmful to me. And I think in this room that I was in yesterday was there were 30 people really trying to grapple with how to thrive in their work to serve communities when kind of the pressures of the organizational culture really focused on perfectionism and a sense of urgency and feeling defensive when falling short of those. And so this is really kind of a space for us to then, as Nish said, pivot around these and imagine a different way of being and a way of being that focuses on healing.
All right. So we are about to take a break until the top of the hour. And actually, Shannon, if you don't mind, I feel like we should just go ahead and take that break now. And then when we come back, we can intro the 4 pivots. Feels good?
do
All
it.
right. We're going to take a break. Please come back at the top of the hour, your time. I'm in Pacific time zone, so that's 11 a.m. my time. Central, that's 1, and Eastern, that's 2. I think my math is mathing. All right. Take good care.
From everything that's toxic, I don't do the gossip, so sleep around me with the trauma. Busy healing from my trauma, can you relate?
Okay. As we step into the next portion, I just want y'all to know this first hour was us really laying the foundation for you all, both through some grounding and somatic practices, but also through some psychoeducation. And now we're going into my fun part, which is the interactive part. So I'm gonna explain to you all the pivots, and then we're gonna do some practices. They're not gonna be enough time, right? Folks are gonna be like, I wanted more. But it's really just to get you working through what does this actually mean? And not just from, again, a mind, a theoretical standpoint, but through an embodiment practice. And these are some pivots that we're going to come back to throughout the racial equity series. So if you want more, come back, right? Come back. So now we're going to get into some practices, some fun to start really going deepening with this work. So as we express, there are within healing centered engagement, it's a whole, Shawn has written entire books. So you can Google Dr. Shawn Ginwright. There's books that are specific to like how to heal teenagers in urban environments. His most recent book is called The Pivots, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. And these are 4 necessary heart and mindsets that you should adopt in order to create radical healing and transformative change. Within healing-centered engagement, Shawn focuses on cultivating karma principles. That karma is an acronym for culture. So what kind of culture, liberatory culture are you designing? A is agency. So where are you offering space for your own self to have agency and sovereignty, and where are you offering that space for who you're working across from? Relationships, how are we really situating in transformative relationships that really heal and speak to our soul? M in karma is meaning, so how are we making meaning and making sense of the experiences we've had? And A is aspirations. Because we only have, a small amount of time with you all, we're going to focus on the pivots, and that's basically laying the groundwork in order to get to the karma principles. So the first pivot is making a pivot in our presence. Our presence is that embodiment around like our conditioning around sense of urgency, around perfectionism, like those kind of elements where we're constantly producing, right? We're constantly moving. We're in this. And what Dr. Ginwright talks to us about is how important it is for us to shift from a culture of hustle to a culture of flow, right? And flow means presence. That's where we invite ourselves to take a pause, to take a moment, to ground, to orient, to notice what else might want to surface and bustle up. Because if we're constantly in this busyness state, we're only going to be pulling in the tools that are right in front of us. And the tools that are right in front of us are tools that have shaped the current environments that we see right now. And that's what we're trying to disrupt, right? As Renata grounded us in like the purpose of today, we're here to really create different outcomes from communities that have been marginalized. Notice the difference in that. Marginalized communities versus communities that have been marginalized. If they've been marginalized, they can be unmarginalized. So how are we working through creating a better sense of presence and flow in order to have better balance around well-being, around inner alignment, around cultivating resiliency and creativity, sustainable energy, and social justice? So we are going to do a quick presence activity. And I also want to honor that it's 11:11, which is an invitation to make shift and change. So I will say this mantra, and then we're going to get into this activity. You're welcome to repeat after me if you would like. Beyond time and beyond space, I hold this world in my love's embrace, closing the door to the old, opening the door to the new. I recreate the world that I step into. Ashe. Thank you.
Can we get a copy of that?
Yes, Kim. I'll type it up on the next break and I'll put it in the chat. No
Thank
problem.
you.
Exactly. That's it for me, and an elder in my community taught me that as an 11:11 portal prayer mantra. And it's, for me, I kind of see it as Spirit's way of looking at us and giving us an invitation, like, now's the time, like, step on through. We're all in alignment. You being here today is being in alignment. Okay, so let's do an activity, 3 minutes. You're welcome to stay off camera if you'd like, or you can be on camera and that way people can see your fun images. Oh, thank you. I see a couple of people coming on camera. Awesome. So we're going to do an image as we work through a day in our life. So I'm actually going to change my view to gallery so I can see people's images. And this is a time just to pause and reflect on what your day looks like, right? We might already know, like, girl, my day's crazy. But this is a way for us all to see the craziness of our days together. So I'm going to walk us through like a 4 a.m. to midnight. And what you are supposed to do is do an image or an activity, like, what would you be doing at that time? So example, 4 a.m., my image is this. I'm sleeping. I'm trying to wake up because I want to wake up early, but most of the time I'm pressing snooze. I'm going back to sleep. So we're doing our images. And now we're moving on to 5 a.m. What are we doing at 5 a.m.? I still see a lot of sleeping. A lot of sleeping. I see some people starting to wake up and stretch. 6 a.m. What are we doing at 6? I see some stretching, some wake ups. I see some scrolling on TV or on your phone, maybe. I see some stretching. So maybe some people are getting their bodies moving at 6. 7 a.m. I still sleeping. I love the sleeping. I wonder if these 7 a.m. sleepers have kids, but sleeping. I see some praise. I see some running, like we're getting some exercise in. I see maybe like doing my hair, my makeup. I'm getting myself together. 8 a.m. Where are we at 8? Drinking energy drinks. I see some stretching. Now I'm seeing the movement. I see typing already at 8 a.m. We are on the grind. We are checking our work. We're checking other people's work. All right. I see some prayer. I see some driving. We're commuting. 9 a.m. 9 a.m. All I see is work. I still see one person resting. I really hope you're still resting at 9. All right. I see driving. I see reading. 10 a.m. 10 a.m. we're stretching. We're still working. Some of us are like moving a little bit, like maybe we take stretch breaks or walks or something to break up the morning. We're hydrating. Some of us might be eating. 11 a.m. Oh, I see, I see a frantic, like we had to go hyper speed. Whatever work we was doing at 8, we are now in it. We are in it. We are moving. I see a lot of driving. Some people are on the road a lot during the day. Noon. We're at noon now. What are we doing at noon? I see some people eating, but I also see some people working. Some people might also be eating while at their desk. I see like a drinking and typing at the same time. 1 p.m. Where are we at? Making calls, stretching. Oh, good. Some of us might be taking some breaks, but a lot of people are working, moving. 2 p.m. Now we're doing some stretching. Some people are saying bye. Maybe that's the end of your day. You worked it out to where you're off at 2. And a lot of move. Okay, 3. More working. 4. More working, more driving, more calls. Maybe we're commuting home. 5. Some of us have started into like a release at 5 o'clock. Some of us are cooking. I see some stirring. I see some stretching. Maybe some of us are taking like a 5 o'clock walk, workout after work. 6. Oh, some of us are napping. I love the 5 o'clock naps. Yes. 6. I still see a lot of typing. I see a lot of work still being done. I see us like navigating different people. Maybe we're home and our family's like barking different things at us. 7. Some of us are showering. Some of us are praying. I see some rest. I see some driving. I see eating. 8 p.m. Still working. I still see work, y'all. I see some people stressed. I see some people starting to rest. 9 p.m. Now we're seeing some stretch, navigating different people. Maybe we're getting people to bed and things. 10 p.m. Where are we at 10? I still see thinking. I still see deep thinking at 10 p.m. I see a lot of people rest, but only half the people maybe. Some people are still on phones and doing things. 11 p.m. We're on our phones at 11. We're still thinking. We're resting. And the last one will be midnight. Where are we at midnight, y'all? I see most people sleep, but I see some people being like, kind of depends on what I got rocking. All right. You know what your day looked like. I think first round of applause. We have some beautiful actors and actresses in this space. Thank you all for participating. So now just take a moment. I'm going to go back to looking at the slide. So let's pause, reflect on the hustle. So when you were hustling and running and stuff in your body, I know this was like a fun exercise, but where do you feel that? Where do you feel that in your body? For those that were typing late into the night, for those that were on the road for long times, I'm seeing neck. I'm seeing eyes. Yes, those are common places. Our adrenal glands, right? Our adrenal system is at the base of our neck. That is connected to our stress response. Head, belly, yes. Our belly is our solar plexus, so our anxiety around our day. Ooh, warm cheeks. the temperature. Shoulders, absolutely. We hold a lot of stress here. The weight of the world, right? On our shoulders. It can literally feel that way. I'm also seeing some arms and legs, right? A lot of doing. We're doing so much. We're using our hands. Our hands are probably tired, right? And next, where do we find flow? For those of us that did have moments of midday naps or taking a walk or going to the gym, where do you feel flow in your body when you make space for you? So flow for some people looks like prayer and running. It looks like meals and taking care of family. But where they feel it in their body is being able to stretch out. They feel it in their legs. They feel it in their movement. I feel flow in my legs, but I also feel flow in my heart. Like it's like a yes. Those things make me happy, right? To be able to love on my family. I see that in someone else, their chest. Hugs, cuddles, right? We're bringing people in here, your heart. Laughter, that's our bellies. Ashe. All right. So we just wanted to do that exercise just to remind you of what it feels like when you're operating in flow. These felt like really beautiful places. Our bodies got to experience that flow. But there were other places that our bodies were under tremendous stress, right? So what we want to start to incorporate are pivots of where we can move more into flow. If you're feeling stress in certain areas, how can we invite flow to those same areas to help them release? Because the reality is, if we're feeling stress in our necks and our shoulders, over the course of time, it'll become stagnant. It'll look and feel like this. And then you're having to figure out, how do I get to the chiropractor? How do I get to the massage? How do I get to all these things? So what it needs is breakup, right? Breaking up of that stagnant energy and creating a sense of flow. So that is the first pivot, pivoting in our presence from hustle to flow. The next pivot, and I know y'all, we're going to keep on moving through, but we're going to give you some time to reflect and be with this, is a pivot in our awareness from lens to mirror. So what I appreciate so much is that when I was working with Dr. Ginwright and learning about these pivots, is I always felt like my lenses that I brought were like empowering, right? Like I am a strong Black woman capable of anything, all these different things. And they are empowering. But this work in healing-centered engagement has also taught me how to hold up a mirror to how these lenses impact how I show up in this world and how I engage with this world. This can be particularly hard because our lenses weren't necessarily always cultivated by us. Oftentimes, our lenses are cultivated by how society sees us. And then we start to take on those personalities. We get conditioned around that area. So cultivating an awareness in this particular pivot, yes, as someone uplifted in the chat, it's the people pleasing that can then become a behavioral component within this element. But cultivating awareness brings more attention, critical self-reflection, that mirror, to our own biases, the areas that we have power and privilege, and how we have contributed to systemic issues, right? We didn't share it today, but in our fellowship space, we have as a container holder the brave space, because in that poem by McKinley Scott Bay, they talk about how we have all caused harm. We have all created wounds. So this awareness takes us off that high horse and gives us a moment to really be reflective. I worked in Child Protective Services for 10 years. Every day I had to be reflective about the choices and decisions I was making as an arm of the government and how that was creating constriction and tension within my own body, but also what it was conveying to people who looked just like me when I would step into their homes. So having this self-accountability is really important. So we're going to do a little bit of reflection around our lenses. An identity wheel, I would gather many people have seen this before, an identity wheel. And it basically breaks down. So Dr. Kimberly Shaw, she's an attorney. She is someone who developed this notion of intersecting identities, right? So she lets us know that we have different parts of our lenses that have created identities. We have our age, right? So I had a certain lens at 13 and my lens at whatever I am now is different, right? It's been cultivated by my age. I feel like I have a little bit more wisdom. There are things that I don't trip off that I used to trip off of, things like that. My sexual orientation and identity, how I identify within my own SOGI, so sexual orientation, gender, identity, and expression, plays a big part. And again, how the world perceives me. They might look at me and assume that I'm a particular way. Ethnicity, race, gender, physical abilities. I feel like those are common lenses that we think about, but there's other lenses that we bring in too, right? Like our education. I had to really sit with the fact that my family, my core sense is from East Oakland, California. And that means something to me. There's a lot of power and love and pride and resiliency, within my family lineage. And my family has always honored education. And because of that, I have a doctorate degree. And that means something too. That means that my education has afforded me certain privileges and certain lenses that I now need to be self-reflective about, right? So there's all these different parts of our identity. And one that's not on here that I've really been sitting with lately is trauma. My identity and my connection to my complex trauma, my childhood trauma, and the ways that that has shaped how I see the world. And that's something that I've been doing a lot of deep dive work around recreating. So this is a time to go inward within yourselves and do some journaling. So the journal prompts we're going to give you about 5 minutes and play some music. What identities do you think about the most often? What identities do you think about least often? Which identities have the strongest effect on how you perceive yourself? And how are you tending to the wounds within these identities? And thank you for those who are sharing in the chat. We see you. All right, we're going to go ahead and give 5 minutes to reflect and journal about these questions. Shannon, would you mind playing some music for us?
Head over to Hulu this March for our new shows and
Life is a series of victories.
I know we're trying to still get the music tech together, but about 3 more minutes for journaling, y'all.
with some love and attention, we gonna live off our garden. We don't need the permission. We gonna follow our hearts. Yeah. So all my indigo children, fighting for freedom. We gon' pledge allegiance. Donations, birds to teach creation. To the root of our trunks before they branch out and grow wild through the forest. Chopping down trees of the ganges to ground my energy and reconnect with Mother God. I do boom to the boom, watch my soul. Tell them shoot, let it rain, let it pour. Deep, drown in the floods and loves.
Lineages, right? So how this might look and feel as the daughter and mother of immigrants, how it might look and feel for us when we're 13 versus now, and also how it looks and feel once we transition into the role of being a parent, right? So the different ways in which these mirrors are pulled up to reflect back to us how our lenses are evolving and developing and cultivating over time. And also the tie back into the first pivot around presence. So also where we're feeling more flow or more hustle based upon the lenses that we're sitting in right now. You guys are making beautiful connections. Which brings us to the third pivot of connection, right? This is about our relationships. I'm going to break this pivot down for you, and then I'm going to give you opportunity to be in breakout rooms. So this will be the time to be able to share with some partners what's been coming up for you so far before we come back into the main space. So this is a pivot from merely having transactional relationships with folks to tongue twister, to transformative relationship with folks. So what does that mean? Transactional, like I think about, so my son is 14, and for any of us that are parents of teenagers, right? It's like micromanaging, It's like constantly being on them, like how many times I need to tell you these things. And so that can feel very transactional. You need to do this. Where's your homework? What's happening here? Let's get you there. It is a cause and an effect. I need you to do this, so move in this way. Let me direct you so you can move, period. I'm hearing that that's also true for some of our toddlers as well. So thank you for reminding me that it's not just the teenage phase that I'm in. So what we're looking for, right, is transformation. Is how do I get my teenager to want to do these things for himself? How do I create a container and a system that invokes both of us to move and think and flow differently? And so what Dr. Ginwright talks about is building relationships that are based upon trust, empathy, and genuine connection. So really prioritizing a mutual understanding, a solidarity, like I'm in this with you no matter what, and this notion of like collective well-being. Like, I don't want this just because this makes me feel good. I want this because this is going to grow you and develop you into a fully resourced person. And it's going to help reflect back to me that I'm doing what I need to do as a parent to get you there, right? And so oftentimes within this pivot, I talk to people about how important it is to cultivate an internal village and an external village to truly have the transformation that you want to have within yourself. Some of our participants talked early on about having ancestors on their wall, right? Reminding them that existing within them is a village of ancestors that have gone through much harsher circumstances than what we're facing today. They not only survived, but they thrived in those circumstances. We know that to be true because we are evidence of that, and we're here today. As you guys heard me say, my inner child, my little bunny self, when we were talking about her ACEs, right, her adverse childhood experiences, she started to like giggle and shrink and was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to talk about this. So we also have those inner children, our inner teenager, like that rebel energy, like down with the system. We have our inner young adult that was feeling themselves and felt like they could take on the world. We have our inner elders. We have all these different versions of ourselves. And for some of us, we feel really disconnected to those selves. I loved how we talked about that on the last slide around how our lenses have changed over time. They do, but those lenses are still embedded within you one way or another. So it's about how are we amplifying those voices that exist within us and nurturing those parts of us that might be connected to wounded identities that need some love and attention. And then, of course, an external village, right, are the people in this room. How am I connecting and learning and growing? Who is in my environment that I feel like encourages me to be my best self, that fuels my light? Shannon and I, we co-facilitate in different settings. And every time we co-facilitate, I'm like, oh, I'm good. I'm with Shannon today. Because she is a part of my village, right? She is someone that I know is an external transformational relationship that I have, that I've cultivated and I've chosen over time. So our ask of you, as we put you into these breakout rooms, the time in the breakout rooms is going to be short, y'all. You know, we have one more pivot to get through before our break. So it's only going to be about 6 minutes or so that you're getting in your breakout room. And the breakout rooms are going to have 3 people roughly in them each. So it's only going to be about 2 minutes to share. Again, I know it's not enough time, but we are going to be coming back to these pivots throughout the racial equity series. So you'll get more time to come back and do deeper dives around these. So we're going to release you into the breakout rooms, but the question that we're situating you with is, which area are you wanting to build up? Like, where are you going to lean in with your pivots? Are you wanting to do more building up of your internal village or your external village? And your internal village are, thank you for asking the question in the chat, are the members of your internal selves. They're all those different identities They're all those different age groups, ages that you've already had, ages that you haven't had yet. They're your ancestral lineage that flows through you, and they're your descendants that flow through you, right? Your internal village is everything that's connected to like your DNA imprint. I love hearing awesome as the first word that comes back. Yes. And just so you all know, you guys hear the recordings going on and off. Anytime that there's a share from anybody in this group, even if we don't catch it right away, when it gets edited, you will not, your shares will not be included in what the final product of this looks like. And so just wanted to amplify that. I'm just curious, we don't have time for full share outs, but if we could use the reactions on our screen and do like a thumbs up for people that decided to focus on their internal village. I'm just curious who was looking more at internal village. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think about 10 or so folks. And then so external village, folks that were looking at wanting to develop more. I see about 10 or so that way too, a little bit more. And then I see some folks in the chat saying that they were wanting to develop both, which is fine. We were just amplifying the conversation, right? So a lot of folks are like, don't get me to choosing Dr. Niche. I need to work on developing both of these elements within. And as we continue with this, just closing out that place of connection, which Mary spoke to so beautifully, the connection she's making within herself, the connection she's making within cultivating an external village. We have folks in the chat that also talked about that. When you're moving from one place to another, especially when it's a different land from your land of origin, when you're focusing in different communities, that's when it's super important to be cultivating that external village. Like, we need people to help support us, to get us from here to there, to let us know what the resources are. And maybe for those of us that are feeling more stable with our external village, we did more of a shift into the internal. And then there were so many that were like, I'm really wanting to work on building up both. So thank you for those powerful reflections, whether they were shared externally in the chat or in your breakout rooms. So I'm going to walk us through the last pivot, and then we're going to take a short break. So thank y'all for you guys are doing incredible work during this second hour. And this is the pivot around vision. So Dr. Ginwright's work tells us that so often when we're dealing with complex problems, we are just focusing on fixing those problems, right? So we have a situation of, like, I'll speak from my own work. So I do a lot of work in supporting survivors of sexual exploitation and harm. And that is a very complex problem, right? It can be so easy to be like, oh, let me do the research. Let me interview these people. Let's say this is what we need to do. Here's a problem. Here's how we fix it. Again, it's that transactional thing. And it's also just going with the sense of urgency. So that hustle, it's staying in some of those areas that we're wanting to pivot and make more space. And the space we're trying to make is for possibilities, right? We're really wanting to co-create a space of envisioning a possible, more equitable and future. And so this really looks like shifting that narrative, right? Like helping people going from their fixed problem solving to imagining and building alternative realities, to inspiring hope and mobilizing collective action towards transformative change. So we are going to walk you through this last practice around doing and envisioning around what that could look like for you, right? So before we do the practice, we're going to play this quick video for you to understand a little bit more of why.
2016, I was going to play every single day. So I put it into my schedule. Right. And this was going to be a form of inner child work without having to like lay on a couch and think about what happened to me when I was 9.
Play lullaby songs.
Yes, right. So I just decided that I was going to play. I was going to reclaim my childhood through play in my adult body. And that year we did so well across the board. Everything in my life took a gigantic leap up just by scheduling in play
Every day.
every single day.
Let's say like 3 p.m. You're in the middle of
Yes.
you're talking to your team.
That alarm goes off.
What do you do?
I get up, I go skateboard.
Ah.
That alarm goes off, I get up, I dance. That alarm goes off, I have my clients do something called joy alarms. So I have them set 3 to 5 alarms in their phone. Every time that alarm goes off, they burst into spontaneous joy. And there's multiple reasons for it. One is we're sending signals, which is science and biology. We're sending signals from the brain to the body, neuropeptides saying there's something to celebrate. One, I'm just helping them recalibrate their nervous systems just by choosing joy. 2, I'm helping them understand that at any given point, just like Pavlov's dogs, they can ring a bell and go, God's here, love is here, harmony is here, abundance is here. No matter what, regardless of the external circumstances, they can choose to be whatever vibration, frequency, and emotion they decide.
So as this practitioner amplifies, when we take moments to pause and play and imagine and create, it not only like opens up possibilities for us to be able to bring something brand new forward that we can never have thought through before, but it also literally rewires our brain cells around joy. By nature, we're wired around safety. We were created to be able to survive. And so when you come from communities that have experienced violence, oppression, all these different elements, those neural pathways around safety just continue to grow and get amplified and amplified. Do what you need to be safe. That might mean shutting down. That might mean not letting this person in. That might mean just following what the rules are that you need to follow, whatever those things are. So this practitioner, one way that he does that is has what he calls joy alarm. So an alarm goes off and that's how he puts flow, right? If we bring it back into our context, that's how he creates flow in the middle of his hustle. Like, alarm, let me hop on my skateboard. Let me be out, right? For me, that might be alarm. Let me just have a dance party for 1 minute, right? I might not be able to get on a full skateboard for 15 minutes because that might not be the space that I have, but I always have ability to take a moment to breathe, take a moment to play, take a moment to shake, take a moment to create and imagine. I think about those of us on this call that have littles around us, and that's what they live in, right? That 3, 4, 5-year-old space is like all play all the time. And they come up with the most creative ways to do things. And that's because they live in this state. So with that, I'm going to invite you into a moment of breath and imagining, right? Okay. So we're going to do a 2-minute practice around this. And we're going to come back into those spaces of ourselves that we held before, where we're sitting or we're laying. We're noticing our breath. We're starting to slow it down. We're starting to ground, anchor the bottoms of our seats, our roots, into the root of this land, into the deep, deep soil, the nurturing soil, this soil that is held and loved and cared for our ancestors, that is holding and loving and caring for us even now. And as we root and anchor, just like a tree branches go up, we're also going to extend up into the sky, up through our crown, feeling the fullness of our light, coming straight through the source of all creation. And feeling this light start to grow and expand within us. This light also grow and expands all around us. recreating the environment that we're in as we step into a space full of laughter, full of birds singing, full of sunshine, trees that are swaying, stepping into the fullness of the spring equinox that we are in. What are you doing in this place? I'm seeing myself hitting some cartwheels, finding that laughter and joining in. For you, you might just be laying and making angels in the grass. Take a moment to experience yourself in this space. Now that you are here, you get to create. You are on a journey that only you know where you're going. There are resources and people in this space that you are creating. Who are you going to bring on that journey? Who are you going to take with you to travel through? I see a bunny. That bunny knows how to hop. That bunny's connecting with my little bunny. I'm going to invite that bunny onto this journey with me. Pass out those invitations. Bring those folks in. Now that you are all marching along or dancing along or huddling or circling, where do you guys want to go? What's your destination going to be? Maybe you chant it all in one accord. We're going to the moon. Whatever that means for you, where are you going to go? And the last question I want you to ask of your new friends is, how are you going to get there? What are you guys going to build to get you to that destination? Is it a machine? Is it a spaceship? What is it? What does it look like? What does it feel like? As that body is coming together, everybody hops on and takes you straight there. Now that you've arrived, I want you to offer gratitude for the people, the beings, the resources that came along the journey. Offer gratitude to yourself for creating this special place. And take a moment to put your hands on this land that you're on in this space. Now we're going to take 3 collective breaths and bring us back. An inhale and a deep exhale as our hands are rubbing the land with gratitude. An inhale and a deep exhale as we're waving "see you later" to our new friends and our resources. And an inhale and a deep exhale as we're coming back into the present moment from this imaginal, fun, joy-filled space. Now I want to invite you to take a break. Take a break, take a break. We're going to come back at an awkward time of 5 minutes from now, and that's going to be 13 after the hour in whatever time zone you are in. For me, that's 12:13. For Central Time, that may be 2:13, and for Eastern Time, it's 3:13. We'll see you soon.
Ain't no break in my spirit. I celebrate cause I'm living. Feel like my trauma is karma, but I'm embracing the feelings. If you don't feel it, you can't heal it. Mind is not a prison, and life is not a sentence. I hope you feel this in your spirit. Just a moment of silence and a moment of stillness can heal it. Moment of silence and a moment of stillness.
Let it go to
All praises to the Most High. I've been raising my vibration, yoga meditation, just sticking to the basics, living in the matrix. It's cynical and crazy, but I've been swimming in amazement, writing out these verses, reversing all my curses, walking in my purpose, doing it on purpose. I'm sure, I'm certain, I'm pure, not perfect. I rise in service of God, I'm a servant. Take me high. All praises to the Most High. I've been hustling my whole life. I know the struggle, I know both sides. I'm at your name like a bow tie. I don't know if I'm pro-life. I cannot stress, I'm so love and so light and so bright, and me and God is so tight. The light of my life. I'm reaching new heights while I'm reciting my wife. I'm going bravely. Oh, I'm doing greatly. Life's amazing. I guess it is what you make it. This is prayer. This is affirmation. I've been healing. I've been feeling. I've been raising my vibration. I've been patient. I've been waiting. I've been patient, y'all. I've been raising my vibration. I've been healing. I've been praying. I've been raising my vibration. I've been patient. I've been waiting. I've been stacking. I've been saving. I've been healing. I've been praying. Meditating, affirmations, I've been raising my vibration, I've been hella patient, meditating, light and saging, elevating, that's amazing, dedication, self-preservation, I'm a walking revelation, forever agent, in a matrix, I'm a king, I'm a lion, I'm a giant, I'm Messiah, I'm in Zion, I'm prolific, I'm so gifted, I see the vision in my third eye, it's so vivid, I've been raising my vibration. I've been patient, I've been waiting. I've been patient, y'all. I've been raising my vibration. I've been healing, I've been praying. I've been raising my vibration. I've been patient, I've been waiting. I've been stacking, I've been saving, I've been healing, I've been praying. Meditating. Affirmations, I've been raising my vibration.
Neglected, now protected, most respected and reflected. Yeah, I've been raising my vibration, healing the hurt, doing the work, never revert. To whack vibes that came first. Peace in your mind, peace in your soul, peace in your home. Keeping it real enough to grow, that's how you'll know. You're raising your vibration, that's how you'll know. Yeah, you're raising your vibration. Transfiguration, out of stagnation. She remembered who she was, that's a daily affirmation. Don't be mistaken, you're still evolving and amazing. Rebirth and Genesis, just like a chrysalis. Journey in grace, protecting your space. Trust your intuition. In the liminal space, your ancestors been waiting, your higher self been praying.
We'll come back in like 30 seconds. Okay. Welcome you back into our room as we are going to close out with some application of this work and some planning for some next steps, as well as a checkout together as a community. Right. So we are going to invite you with your trusty writing utensil and paper near you is to do some reflection on two key questions. Of the 4 pivots today, what did you experience the most challenge around? And then also, what resources or practices do you want to call in to shift that energy? So this will be where you kind of think about a plan for developing healing-centered engagement in your life, in your work, in your leadership. So think about what was kind of a challenge for you today, which pivot, and then what resources do you want to call in to shift that energy? So take a couple minutes and reflect on these 2 questions, and you may also choose to share some of your reflection in the chat. So we'll take 5 minutes. Take another minute or 2. There's some beautiful reflections in the chat. Okay. We're going to offer some additional reflection for this checkout. There is a storytelling framework from a community organizer by the name of Marshall Gans. Yes, maybe he's one of the community organizers, and worked for a very long time in California with the migrant labor unions there. And he really posits the idea that leadership is storytelling. And that is how we can connect and make change. And the way that he talks about leadership and storytelling is that there's sort of your head and your heart and your hand. So thinking today about what's maybe in your head, something that you've learned, something in your heart is something that maybe you're feeling. That could be feeling in your body or an emotion that you're feeling. And then hand is a commitment, a next step that you're going to take. So you can add some additional reflections there. You can put those in the chat as well. If you want to come off mute and speak that into the room, we would love that and hear your voices before we officially close out. So let's take 5 minutes and just think on head, heart, and hand, and please feel free to speak into the room.
I just also wanted to give voice to some of the beautiful reflections and the chat that came from the last activity of starting to put together an HCE plan. Folks reflecting on how the mirror, the pivot in awareness from lens to mirror brought up a lot of emotion, and really leaning into what does that last pivot around vision really mean and working on that. Folks that are reflecting on what white supremacy culture is and how they can disrupt and decenter that. A lot of folks talking about that shift in vision from problem fixing to possibility creating, focusing on having a more racially just team within their church communities, within their agencies. And just spending time in practice with each of these pivots. I love that someone uplifted wanting to take these pivots into their sabbatical. So while they're on break, really being able to lean more into what it really means to be more aware and be more present, to have vision and connection. And now coming through the chat are some closeout, checkout reflections around head, heart, and hand. We are seeing that folks have learned to check in and be more aware of the focus and vision that they have. Feeling grateful for ancestral awareness that can be passed down generationally. And feeling a strong pull to see how that fits in with their practices and their profession. Feeling less alone in the hustle and how it hasn't felt like a thriving space for them. I love that there's more clarity. Feeling more clear, more open-minded is something that folks are walking away with, along with flow and joy as destination. Yes. I love that destination. And the last couple notes that I'll uplift before passing it back to you, Shannon, for the feedback survey is how flow is as important as hustle, and that this work is deeply important to strategy. So strategy has to be grounded in mindfulness. Ashe. And that commitment to pause and to listen to ancestors and to intuition or instinct.
Great, everyone. Thank you all so much for your time and your energy and your wisdom today. So there's a QR code here that links to a feedback survey. I'm also going to drop it in the chat. We really believe that feedback is a gift, and we are excited to be together with you for 3 more sessions, and we hope you'll join us. So any feedback that you can offer where we can iterate and continue on designing this so that it is as meaningful for you as possible. So thank you again for all of your energy. Please, it's super quick feedback survey. If you can make sure to just do that really briefly before you hop off, we are very grateful for it. So thank you all so much.
Shannon, a little music to close us out for these last 5 minutes while folks do the survey. Thank you.
This song.
Listen as your day unfolds, challenge what the future holds. Try and keep your head up to the sky. Lovers, they may cause you tears. Go ahead, release your fears. Stand up and be counted. Don't be ashamed to cry. You gotta be bad. You gotta be bold. You gotta be wiser. You gotta be hard, you gotta be tough, you gotta be stronger. You gotta be cool, you gotta be kind, you gotta stay together. All I know, love will save the day. Hear what your mother said, read the books your father read. Try to solve the puzzles in your own sweet time. Some may have more cash than you, others take a different view. My, oh, my. You gotta be bad, you gotta be bold, you gotta be wiser. You gotta be hard, you gotta be tough, you gotta be stronger. You gotta be cool, you gotta be fun, you gotta stay together. All I know, love will save the day. Don't ask me questions that go wrong without you. Behind the face. Some stand against my bed, you try to. Yes, I can stay good, stay you down. Remember, listen as your day unfolds. Challenge what the future holds. Try to keep your head up to the sky. Lovers, they may cause you tears. Go ahead and release your fears. My, oh my. You gotta be bad, you gotta be bold, you gotta be wiser. You gotta be hard, you gotta be tough, you gotta be stronger. You gotta be, you gotta be, you gotta stay together. All I know, all I know, never say that you gotta be bad, you gotta be bold, you gotta be wise. You gotta be hard, you gotta be tough, you gotta be stronger. You gotta be, you gotta be, you gotta stay together. All I know, never say that you got to be broke, got to be bad, got to be wise. Don't ever say, got to be hard, got to do much. No, say that we gotta be bad, you gotta be bold, you gotta be wise. You gotta be hard, you gotta be tough, you gotta be stronger. You gotta be, you gotta be, you gotta stay together. You gotta be bad, you gotta be bold, you gotta be wise. You gotta be hard, you gotta be tough, you gotta be stronger.
Right. I think that'll close us out. So thank you all so much. We're sending you all the love and energy for the rest of your day and the rest of your week. And we will see you in July.
See you in July. Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.